Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Out of the Abyss with your boys, Lot Pip and Jake.
Yo.
What's up?
We've been getting some heavy stuff lately, fellas. Some deep cuts. Mothman, Mibbs, Travis Walton getting, I'm going to say, caressed by the aliens that we decided arbitrarily were Swedish.
That's one way to describe it.
Oh man, I almost forgot about that.
I figured, you know what? Let's do something a little fun here, boys. We're talking about the famous collaborative internet horror fiction of the SCP Foundation.
Love it.
Love the SCP. I'm actually an old fan of this. I remember when this was just getting on in like the first part of their series there. Now they've got they're like, was it 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 times bigger than it used to be.
Yeah.
It grew a lot, dude. Pretty quickly, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I figured we can start with kind of a look at the backdrop real quick, contextualize all of this for everyone, and then we'll kind of do like a reading of one or two of our favorites, let everyone dip their toes into the experience.
Yeah.
To inform the unfortunately unenlightened, the SCP website is a place where different authors come together and write about anomalies that they've imagined in sort of like a parallel world. Usually, these are written in a pseudo-scientific format, with the framing being that you're accessing sort of like a case file that's being used by a fictional organization. This group, the SCP Foundation, is kind of a secret cabal that locates, contains, and then locks away any anomalies that they find so that regular people can just live regular lives without knowing that it exists.
Men in Black at that point.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
The SCP, in fact, stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. The Foundation is sort of like a really, really creepy and secret UN. Like, it functions above any government's jurisdiction, and it's international, and it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
In fact, most governments are aware, at least in some capacity, of the SCP Foundation and provide financial aid to them, as well as a supply of prisoners for use in experiments.
Also known as Class Ds.
Oh yeah. We'll give you a couple of examples, but first we got to break down a little bit of terminology and hierarchy within this world. First,
Yeah.
the Foundation itself, the SCP Foundation, led by a council known as the O5 Council. The O5 Council is made up of 13 individuals, generally considered the most powerful people on Earth. Years of locking up and studying anomalies have granted them access to literally unimaginable tools and abilities that change based on which author is writing the story that you're reading. That's going to happen a lot in SCP because it is collaborative, and the official SCP canon is whatever you decide is the coolest canon.
I think that's the best part of it, honestly. Like, there's just so many ways you can
there
take
really-
it, and so many people have their own version of it, and that's what I like about it.
There really is a lot of sort of clashing sort of canons in there and different canons. I think there's even a section in there where you can just sort of pick different canons.
Yeah, there's one called like the Cactus Verse, and it was written by an author called DJ Cactus. But it's hundreds of articles that are all woven together into like a single. It's really impressive.
Oh yeah.
You just gotta take your
There's all
idea and
different
run
kinds
with
of,
it,
like,
dude,
groups.
right? This guy just
Yeah.
likes his cactus.
Love it, dude.
He's got
Everyone
like,
telling scary stories around the world's biggest campfire.
yeah. Between the O5 Council, beneath the O5 Council, are the various doctors who perform experiments on anomalies. And beneath the doctors are the researchers, and beneath the researchers are the security personnel, and finally the prisoners that I referenced earlier. These prisoners are known collectively as D-Class, with the D standing for disposable. Usually, these are people who are sentenced to death row, and they're kind of given the choice between certain standard execution or probable but extra hideous execution.
But maybe not.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we found this weird thing. We don't quite know what it does. Send in the guy on death row. Have him interact with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's been turned into butterflies and paste.
Yeah. Oh, his skin just sloughed off, and then he came back and didn't realize his skin had sloughed off. So we're going to not send anyone else in there.
Now we know.
Oh, this man's hair has started a semi-intelligent revolt.
Is that a real one?
No, I don't know.
No,
Maybe
that was just one I came off with, ironically, off the top of my head.
You just sent
Get
me
it?
that one,
Yeah?
dude.
in the
Yeah, that one sounds
Pitverse.
fun. Ah, there you go. Yeah,
No.
so like, oh, well, now we know that. We'll send in only people with no hair.
Get Moby on the phone. we need him right now.
Let's take a
Listen here, Moby. It's been 14 years since the president has had to call you up
Are
to
you
help.
doing an Obama impression?
Sorry, that was my Joe Biden. I don't listen to a lot of Joe Biden, but I believe that he takes big long pauses while he remembers what his next words are, right?
I think most politicians do that, don't they?
I mean,
Yeah.
They're all
and old
kind of
people,
old. I
right?
guess that's
He's an old politician, so maybe it's just like doubled, extra long pauses.
Obama was
fellow
the
Americans.
master of the diction. He would pick the perfect spot in the sentence to kind of gather his words before he said stuff a little bit faster so that you knew that he was both intelligent and capable. But also coming up with this stuff. It's not, I don't have a writer, you know.
Do you think he practiced that?
Probably.
Yes. I
You
think they all,
a teacher
I think
for
they
that?
all
You
do.
got to hire someone to teach you how to talk like a president?
Because a lot
I'm
of
sure it's
presidents are
provided
former
for you,
lawyers.
right? As the president.
It's complimentary.
Like a lot of these people graduated from law school. Almost all presidents, I think,
Oh
graduated
yeah,
from
they've
law
got all
school.
kinds of
So-
crazy like public speaking.
Yeah, that's
thing.
kind of a lawyer's job. Now, to reel it back in, apart from that top to bottom hierarchy, are the MTFs, Mobile Task Forces. And these are teams composed of specialists that are used to explore anomalous landscapes or fight anomalous threats. As opposed to the D-Class, who are just kind of cannon fodder. These people are legitimately armed, equipped, and trained to handle all kinds of situations.
And generally briefed. Class D's are literally guinea pigs.
Yeah, I believe that the general order is that they send in a D-Class, and then they send in a drone. And then if the drone and the D-Class show that like people can survive, they send in an MTF.
I like that the drone comes after the D class.
Right? The drone was expensive. That's the difference.
That's fair.
Now, when the Foundation captures an anomaly, they classify it into one of three categories, and these are Safe, Euclid, and Keter. Now, a lot of people think that these refer to the danger levels of SCPs, but it actually doesn't. It refers to how difficult it is to contain them. So like something of Keter class, for example, could probably break free if it figured out how, and would certainly release death and destruction around the world if it did. Whereas like Safe is something that's probably inanimate.
Just hang
It doesn't
there.
move. Yeah, you can just stick it in a room and that's it.
Yeah.
A
Put it
fourth classification was actually recently created called Thaumiel, and Thaumiel is applied to SCPs that actively help the Foundation.
That's interesting because I think I've heard reference in some of the older articles of several safe ones being used to aid the Foundation and them not having that. So
Yeah.
maybe they're going to do like a retcon or something. It didn't.
I mean,
I
he
don't know
did
if
say
that
it was
really is
recently added, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems a little redundant.
Now, the Foundation isn't the only paranormal society out there in this universe. They have numerous groups of interest, which generally exist with their own goals and objectives, and some are nefarious, and some are benevolent, and some are competent, and some are incompetent, and most are somewhere in between. Some relatively important groups, to give you a little taste, we've got the Sarkic cults. Sark, for anyone who doesn't know, Sark is ancient Greek for flesh, or, body. And the followers of Sarkicism appropriately worship Yaldabaoth, who's like a god of flesh and blood. And most of the anomalies that the Sarkics create or are involved with are rich with like Cronenberg-style body horror and like transformations and cannibalism and general squeamishness.
Russ, dude.
Some cool
Yeah.
stuff. There's one that's just like a spreading mutation of like Cronenberg-esque flesh, and it took over a town.
Yeah, and its containment is that they literally have like outposts of people with flamethrowers who torch everything within like 50 feet, and they keep up like a dead zone.
It's basically the Thing got a hold of a town, and they have to like stop birds and stuff from going in.
No,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Or out.
Get out of there.
Yeah.
Under the dome, but they don't have a giant dome.
Yep.
They just have fire.
Just dudes with flamethrowers, same thing.
A burning ring of fire, to quote the illustrious Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash,
Mr.
aka 05-1.
Yep. True.
Now, opposing the Sarkics are the Church of the Broken God, and this one I'm pretty sure is like Pip's favorite or one of his favorites.
It's one of my. It's up there. It's like second favorite, maybe.
They believe in the transmutation of flesh into machinery, in imitation of their chosen deity, Mechane.
Yeah,
Mechane was a giant mechanical being, and I think there's some lore about like he created the stars with metal and stuff before being destroyed and split into many pieces.
It's basically like a mechanical god, and he's asleep, and the whole church is trying to emulate him, or it, by, to get closer to it by placing parts of their body, and there's different schools of thought within the faction where some are more mechanical and are like clockwork, and other ones have more like digitals and servos and stuff. There's all kinds of cool stuff. They've got a really cool sort of theme to all their sort of anomalous objects.
Yeah, and some of the church members, they devote themselves to finding the pieces of Mechane, including a bunch of really cool stories about the heart of Mechane. And thus the church is a really good source of steampunkish horror. I believe that there's one article that talks about, it's like a universe where they've successfully rebuilt the full body of the mechanical god Mechane, except for the heart, which they couldn't find, so they made like a new one. And of course,
Nice.
as soon as they install it, this thing like goes berserk and just starts destroying cities.
As you do, yeah.
As you do.
Now, there's other groups as well, like my favorite, Are We Cool Yet?, which is a group of anomalous artists.
That's actually my favorite.
Yeah, the Serpent's Hand, which seeks to bring death and destruction, and tons of others. The American government has one. It's called like the Department of Unusual Incidents, but they're generally considered pretty incompetent. The only time that they get to do stuff is when the SCP Foundation has something that's like beneath their notice. They'll like ship over, call the DUI and be like, hey, go take care of this for us.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact name. It's something. It's a specific type of like anomalous toy, like jawbreakers that like actually break your jaw, or like joy buzzers that are like actually electric.
Mr. Wondertainment.
Yeah, Mr. Wondertainment, and just like weird anomalous toys that are like actually horribly deadly.
Yeah. Some of them are fun and some of them are deceptively not good.
Yeah. Some things just like taste like anything.
Yeah, it's this is honestly one of the best works of fiction that I personally think has ever been crafted. It has produced a number of striking and memorable stories and ideas, and I think it's safe to say that more than a few hours of sleep have been lost to people reading articles here.
It's branched out into other forms of media too. Like I'm fairly sure there's a video game about it. What's it called?
Two, they're both
Breach
bad.
Containment or something?
Containment breach. And there's another one.
there's
And
also-
they're both not good.
There's another one, and it's out right now for like a Kickstarter. I think it's like Pandemic, and it's based off of one specific one. There's some cool stuff, and you can. It's inspired a lot of people to create a ton of artwork and different stories.
Yeah.
And as you can see here, more media content. For example, podcasting. Some people have whole things about that. Yeah, tons of cool stuff.
And big YouTube channels that are just SCP readings.
Yeah.
Yep, Minecraft mods even.
Hell yeah. Now, without boring you guys further, let's get into some juicy SCP files. Let's introduce you to the format. Who wants to go first?
I can go.
All right.
Hey, you
All
want
right.
the
Alright, so
plastic statue, didn't
It's
you?
probably the first one most people are gonna run into. It's called the statue or the sculpture. So, I know it is SCP-173, but for some reason on the site it's listed as 3145. So, I don't know. Pick whatever one you want to. So, it's an elucid class. and it's to be kept in a locked container at all times. The enclosure must be cleaned bi-weekly. Personnel are to enter SCP-3145's container in groups of no less than 3 with all the doors locked behind them. 2 personnel must maintain continual direct eye contact with SCP-3145 until all personnel have vacated and relocked the container. Personnel are to alert one another before blinking. Any change in sounds originating from SCP-3145's containment chamber should be reported to the HCML supervisor on duty. Its description: it's a sculpture constructed of concrete and rebar with traces of Krylon brand spray paint. Its origin is unknown. It's animate but cannot move while in direct line of sight of a human being. When a human being breaks eye contact with SCP-3145, it'll move at high speed and attack the individual, typically by snapping their neck at the base of the skull. Strangulation has also been employed. While SCP is not under observation, personnel have reported sounds of scraping stone within its chamber. A reddish substance, a combination of human feces and blood, has also been observed on the floor of SCP-3145's chamber. Though SCP-3145 is believed to be the origin of this material, the actual source of SCP-3145's means of producing it are currently unknown. A little spooky, dude. And like, there's an image here that I found on another website. I'll throw it in Discord for you boys to look at. And like, this is
Oh, I've seen this one before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like a big weird-headed baby.
It's like
thing
a big weird-headed
like
baby thing
face.
with the little black butt and fucking blood and shit all over its face. Yeah, it's kind of fucking terrifying to look at, really.
It's like 6 feet tall, and if you're not looking at it, it moves at incredible speed and kills you.
And then the ground is just covered with blood everywhere.
And they don't even know where it comes from. Yeah, I think in one of the earlier, where we were talking about the games, like, the game had a blinking mechanic specifically for this thing.
Yeah.
Where you had to, like, time between the blinks, because some things would just get in there when you're blinking.
There's few things more fucking terrifying than stuff that moves only when you don't look at it. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's just one of the most terrifying things to me. Especially with something like this, where it's very fucking large and in a well-lit room. I mean, it's fine, right? But you encounter this thing, like, in the wild, not in some, like, fucking controlled area, then fuck that shit, dude.
Oh, yeah, that thing out in the wild. See, that's why they have the containment for it, right? Yeah.
All right. Pip, you want to go second?
Yeah, I got one. I got my personal favorite, SCP-050, titled To the Cleverest. It is a Euclid class, and its special containment procedures are... So far, all attempts to contain SCP-050 have proven fruitless at present. However, whoever has possession of SCP-050 is to leave it in an office that they use with regularity. And there's some footnotes there. And there's some footnotes there. First one being, testing to contain it has been discontinued, and attempts to leave it in unused offices have resulted in it following the owner home. This is a violation of regulations and is not to be allowed. So that's why you have to keep it in an office that you use with regularity. So it's more or less safe. It's just hard to contain. The description is, it appears to be a statue of a monkey reading a book. The statue is approximately 1 foot tall. Footnote, one of the quirks is that no matter what form of measurement is used, any record of said measurements will quickly be replaced by the customary system measurements. And I don't know what that means. Probably an archaic measurement system as a joke, which will become clearer as I read. Yeah. The statue is proven resistant to all forms of damage. 1 foot tall. At the bottom of the statue are engraved the words, "To the Cleverest," in cursive script. When left alone, it has shown itself to be both useful and antagonistic to its current owner. And there's a footnote here with a whole document, and I'll do that after I finish the description. Although never seen to move, no matter the amount or manner of recordings, any room it's left in becomes very clean, to a polish wherever possible, paperwork is filed, trash is empty, and in general, clutter is removed. So it's the ultimate, like, house buddy, you know, like, secretary, cleans up, does all this fun stuff. Although it also has a tendency to leave traps for its current owner, so current holders should be careful when checking their offices upon returning. And there's a document here, and it's got all kinds of entries regarding it. They call it the Great Researcher Prank War of Redacted. And during an attempted recovery of SCP-936 by the Chaos Insurgency agents, Dr. Bright made use of 963's intrinsic capabilities to make fools of his attempted kidnappers. When Bright returned to his office, he found the statue waiting for him. His office had been tidied in his absence and everything filed away, which came as something of a shock for the naturally messy Dr. Bright. Upon further examination, it was found that despite the apparent tidiness of his office, all of his pens had been drained to the last bit of ink, and several important documents had been translated into Aramaic. He immediately began the usual testing of the new SCP, but found himself going nowhere until Dr. Wrights, as payback for something unspecified, smeared his desk with one half of a compound epoxy and applied the other half to the compound to his utensils. At this point, SCP-050 vanished from Dr. Bright's office, reappearing in Dr. Wright's office, whereupon 050 began the cleanup again. After several tests, it became apparent that SCP-050 was easily contained as long as nobody outside the Foundation proved to be cleverer than the Foundation scientists. Of course, this led to many of the scientists seeking to claim the title of most clever for themselves, and thus began the Great Researcher Prank War of Redacted. So basically, it pranks you, and it will do stuff for you. It'll clean up your office and be just generally useful in like a pranky way, as long as you are king of pranks.
As long as you hold the title, dude, this thing is just gonna help you out.
Yeah. There's like 15 entries here of like escalating levels of pranks. Wherein at the end, yeah, I know, escalating levels of pranks, wherein it basically ends in like the head, one of the O5 operators being like, all right, stop it.
Just quit it, dude. What the fuck?
You can't do this anymore. Whoever has it is king. No more pranks. We just need to contain this thing. People have almost died. Because it just keeps escalating.
It's actually really funny. I love that one, dude.
Yeah, it's my personal favorite. And as an additional fact, it took me literal years to track down, but I actually have a copy of the sculpture that it's based off of. I've got it in my room.
I've seen pictures of it. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
All right, my turn?
Yep.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Item number SCP-1057. Object class safe. Special containment procedures. SCP-1057 is kept in a reinforced glass containment tank, 4 meters tall, 15 meters long, and 9 meters wide, filled with water which has been treated to replicate a temperate ocean environment. See document 1057-H-22 for specifications. Vegetation in SCP-1057's habitat is to be maintained twice a week. See document 1057-H-19 for specifications. It is forbidden to enter SCP-1057's tank for 30 minutes before and after feedings. SCP-1057 is to be fed 5 kilograms of raw meat and fish 3 times a day. Once every 4 days, this meat and fish is to be injected with non-toxic fluorescent dyes. See document 1057-G-4 for specifications. The tank is to be lit with ultraviolet lamps. Description: SCP-1057 is an inanimate empty space, 5 meters long, in the shape of an adult tiger shark. It does not appear to have any mass. However, it displaces water by an unknown mechanism. SCP-1057's refractive index is approximately that of air, which makes it partially visible when immersed in salt water. As well, its anti-shadow is discernible under bright lights. Experiments involving the insertion of inanimate objects into SCP-1057's body have revealed that there is nothing there. However, further experiments along these lines are contraindicated, as this triggers extremely aggressive behavior on the part of SCP-1057. SCP-1057's behavior has been assessed by Foundation ichthyologists as being within normal parameters for an adult tiger shark. Any food consumed by SCP-1057 disappears, with the exception of the non-digestible fluorescent dyes, which are regularly added to SCP-1057's food to facilitate monitoring its behavior. These dyes persist within SCP-1057 for 5 to 9 days and outline a digestive and circulatory system. Several hypotheses to explain how this is possible when there is manifestly no actual shark present have been suggested, tested, and disproved. See Archive 1057-N4. Acquisition Log. SCP-1057 was captured in the Redacted public swimming pool in Redacted, where it killed 2 swimmers and mutilated a lifeguard. 5 people were killed in the ensuing panic. Foundation personnel embedded in the local hospital reported the incident. Retrieval agents arrived on the scene, and SCP-1057 was eventually taken into custody. During forensic examination of the swimming pool premises, document 1057-K24 was discovered on the staff bulletin board. Although document 1057-K24 is handwritten, no fingerprints were found on it. And finally, we have they've posted document 1057-K24. Panic means that the idea of a shark can be more dangerous than an actual shark. It can even be more dangerous than no shark at all. Are we cool yet?
I really like this one. It's one of the works of the Are We Cool Yet group of interest, yeah?
Yeah, the anomalous artists.
Yeah, where they use, just sort of anomalous things as art. And this is a good example of this sort of anomalous avant-garde style of art.
The fear of shark can be greater than shark.
Yeah, because only 2 people were killed by the shark, but 5 people were trampled in the attempts to escape.
Yeah, interesting.
Art. And as, of course, all artists want to be the coolest artists, so are we cool yet?
Are we cool yet?
All right. Jake, you got another?
I do. SCP-451. It's a lucid class.
Euclid.
Yeah, thank you. Euclid. Special containment procedures. Due to SCP-451's current state, physical containment is not feasible. Extensive study of Agent Redacted Psychological's profile has allowed researchers to provide him with a mental task in order to keep him at Site-19. A security detail of 2 guards must accompany SCP-451 at all times in order to prevent attempts to access or release other potentially dangerous objects contained on site. Any research in SCP-451 should be restricted to determining ways to contain or communicate with them. Description: SCP-451, formerly Agent Redacted, is a Caucasian male, 33 years of age, and 1.6 meters tall. SCP-451 cannot perceive the presence or actions of other human beings. Changes made to the immediate environment are generally not noted by SCP-451 unless his attention is elsewhere for an arbitrary period of time. Certain changes to SCP-451's surroundings are misinterpreted, including all attempts to communicate with him, and any clear evidence of direct human intervention. Study may be necessary to determine a pattern in what is perceived and what is not. SCP-451 appeared at Site-19 1 month after he was declared MIA following a failed attempt to retrieve a dangerous artifact. The actions of SCP-451 were found to be consistent with stress response indicated in Agent Redacted's psychological profile. Reports of petty thefts and ghost sightings between the artifact's location and Site-19 suggest that SCP-451 traveled here on foot, taking what resources were at hand. The artifact itself still remains at large. There's a few addendums here. SCP-451 has recently shown suicidal tendencies. Despite how many staff feel about his presence, it is no excuse for providing him with convenient methods of self-termination. SCP-451 was a valuable agent before his accident and can be again if he ever regains full perception.
That is the most clinical way I've ever heard it. Jesus.
Right? That's why I like this one so much, dude. It's just very...
Yeah. That one in itself is a little bit just on its own scary.
Yeah.
How the Foundation like documents.
I
things.
know, and like this specific case to me, like I don't know. Can you imagine just not being able to interact with anything at all? Like that's fucking terrifying. There's a little bit more to this
That
though.
explains the title of it.
Yeah, exactly right. There's a little bit more to this.
Mr. Lonely.
Following the events described in Incident Report 451-1, further attempts at convincing SCP-451 to self-terminate will result in suspensions of all involved personnel. We have him classified as Euclid. Thank you. Euclid for a reason. Though direct communication is not possible with SCP-451, it has been found that active attempts to deceive him have varying rates of success. A program has been put in place to plant false evidence for SCP-451. His psychological profile indicates that he will construct a narrative using this evidence. This plotline is intended to keep SCP-451 at Site-19, where he may continue to be monitored. Contingencies have also been made in case any evidence is overlooked or misinterpreted. And then this is the big one right here. So Incident 451-1 on redacted. SCP-451 discovered a firearm left for him by Site-19 staff. SCP-451 entered the main break room, placed the weapon in his mouth, and fired it. The bullet passed through SCP-451 without harming him and entered a Level 2 researcher. The researcher was briefly able to interact with SCP-451 before expiring. Unfortunately, no useful information was passed on to SCP-451. Dude just wants to die so bad, but he can't.
That last incident has just like this really tantalizing, like, ooh, there's a clue there,
Yeah,
just a little bit,
something.
And then the document ends.
Exactly, that's it. That's fucking all of it, dude.
That's really like peak writing there,
Yeah.
where it's just like, ooh,
Keep coming back, dude.
tantalizing.
We
Yeah,
love
man.
cliffhangers around here, right?
That's the
baby.
goal.
I'm mad.
All right,
I,
Pip, you got another?
Yeah, I got one. SCP-217, titled "The Clockwork Virus."
Oh, this one's really good.
Object class Keter. Special containment procedures are: containment area is to be kept behind 2 reverse pressure airlocks, chemical shower sterilization, full contained atmosphere hazmat suits, and 24-hour post-interaction quarantine and testing are mandatory for all personnel entering containment area. It's like, this thing is serious. They got this locked down. Should containment be breached, the blast door for containment and research area will seal, and chemical agent said EER-217-11 will be pumped into the air. They made their own chemical agent to deal with this thing. Apparently. It's named after it anyways. Any humans exposed to SCP-217 are to be contained and held for observation. Any items touched by those affected must be sterilized. So I'm sure you're wondering, what the heck is this thing? Title is a bit of a giveaway. It's, quote, a clockwork virus. Description is as follows. SCP-217 is a virus incurable by current means with a rate of infectivity of 100%. It affects all organisms in the kingdom Animalia and can be spread via touch or contact with bodily fluid. It is very hardy and can survive for years outside the host body, and the progress of infection is very slow, with some subjects going several years before manifesting any symptoms. SCP-217 appears SCP-217 alters the biochemistry of organic tissue, causing organic matter to rearrange into a form of, quote, organic metal. The processes involved with this change are not yet fully understood, but the advanced stages are well documented. A subject will begin to turn into a complex arrangement of gears and clockwork, these taking over the former biological functions. Advanced stage infection is reported to be very painful, but earlier stages are oftentimes unnoticed, with only vague feelings of confusion, insomnia, and joint stiffness. Hearts are replaced by gears and small tubes, joints by gear networks, eyes by structures not unlike primitive hand crank film cameras, etc. SCP-217 shows first on the outside of the body in all creatures except mammals. In mammals, it first converts the internal structure before manifesting outside the body. This can cause infected to go for very long periods of time without knowing of infection. SCP has been shown to totally convert the inside of the body before showing any externally visible symptoms. SCP-217 has infected several major metropolitan areas in the past, most notably, and there's a black box there because it's been redacted.
Redacted.
Yeah. Yep. The mental state of those in middle to advanced stages of infection have been shown to be much diminished. Subjects respond in a repetitive fashion, which are dull and mechanical in action, and are easily distracted and confused, and appear generally irritable when faced with new problems. In addition, research on a fully converted brain has been also redacted. So, it turns you into some kind of machine, but it doesn't really seem like it's like piecemeal. So it's like a ship of Theseus robot virus, and I don't know if you're fully sentient by the end of it. You seem like a clockwork person. It's cool.
That is pretty neat, man.
Yeah. Oh, there's some notes on infections here. Subjects infected by SCP-217 have, at early stages, reported no major symptoms aside from increased lethargy and a general lack of emotional response. Some have reported feeling a fluttering or moving under the skin, coupled with persistent ticking noise. This noise seems most prominent when SCP infects the shoulders, neck, and head. However, it is inaudible if recording equipment is pressed against the affected area. Initial infection of SCP-217 is, as has already been stated, almost undetectable. As the infection advances, subjects will begin to feel sharp, tearing pain in areas that are being converted. It has been compared to a knife wound or a deep muscle tear, which can persist for hours or several days, depending on both the subject and the area affected. The clockwork organs appear to tear and rip at tissue for a short time before being fully integrated and settling into the surrounding tissue, and that is believed to be the account for the pain. Areas infected appear to be metal, mainly brass, steel, and iron. Other substances have been reported, appearing to be leather, rubber, glass, wood, and other basic materials. Despite appearances, it is purely organic material and even carries the subject's DNA. Organs and tissues affected appear more resilient than normal, carrying the same strength and density as the materials they resemble, instead of normal tissue density. Areas damaged repair over time, but it is much slower than standard human regeneration. But damaged areas can be instantly, quote, repaired by replacing damaged areas with new parts of the same type. And testing has shown that there are no ill effects if parts made from the normal materials, like steel, wood, or leather, replace the existing biomechanical clockworks. Most alarming, people infected with SCP-217 continue for months or even years without being detected. With infections so easy to spread, hundreds could already be affected before major containment could be enforced. Infection appears to spread most quickly in large offices, malls, and other large concentrations of people. Anyone or anything suspected or confirmed to be infected with SCP-227 anything or anyone suspected or confirmed to be infected with SCP-217 is not to be allowed near SCP-882. And 882 is its own whole other article involving gears and some kind of clockwork, which is something that you yourself can dive in later.
That sounds real spooky, dude.
Yeah, this is a particularly... This one kind of hits on the... I felt like this one was relevant, just sort of with the whole pandemic thing going on. I thought it was sort of tonally kind of lined
A
up.
little more, clockwork.
Yeah, a little more clockwork. Hold on, I got a horn for this. Jokes.
Alright. I've got one here. This is kind of a... We've been telling some scary ones, and there's some great scary ones. There are, however, really, really good joke articles.
Yes, there's a lot that are amazing.
Dash J.
For example, one of my absolute favorites is the article of things that Dr. Bright is not allowed to do. Now, Dr. Bright is the recipient of SCP-963. 963 was an amulet, and no one knew what it did until one day the group of doctors who were researching it, and a containment breach happened, and the wing of the site they were in exploded, and everyone died. But 3 days later, when they were clearing the rubble, a D-class touched the amulet and immediately stood up and asked what was going on, and said that he was Dr. Bright. And after a bunch of testing and research, they basically figured out that when Bright touched the amulet and then died, he'd photocopied his soul onto it. So now if he dies, anyone who touches the amulet becomes Dr. Bright. As he was at the moment of his latest death.
That's sick. I want one of those.
Sick.
So to hit you with the list of things that he is not allowed to do. It turns out that being immortal gives him a very cavalier attitude towards danger for himself and others. So
I would imagine.
Dr. Bright, let's see, although it is entirely possible to use SCPs currently under control of the Foundation to create tentacle monsters, no. Not even if Dr. Palmer asks nicely. There is no market for SCP brand pornography, Dr. Bright. No, not even in Germany. Dr. Bright should not replace the buckshot in Dr. Clef's shotgun shells with any of the following: birdseed, confetti, cake sprinkles, sawdust, or glitter. The Better Business Bureau is not the correct agency for dealing with containment failures from horrible eldritch artifacts sold by Marshall Carter and Dark. Victims of SCP-217 are not toys, nor are they to be used as props at a steampunk convention, Dr. Bright. Dr. Bright is not allowed to bargain with personnel for their souls, not even if he claims to be able to get them a good deal.
Yeah,
Dr.
he
Bright
really gets cavalier when he's got no fear of death, because, they can't even kill him. He's just gonna... Somebody touches the amulet one day, he's back.
Yep. He may not use any form of the word accident as an excuse. Where are we? Not allowed to send Nigerian-esque spam emails to the Church of the Broken God.
That one really got me.
Where are we?
Sorry, those scam emails have a special place in my heart, dude. Those are really funny.
Where are we? Dr. Bright is not from an alternate timeline. He cannot issue orders to preserve the timeline, or to corrupt the timeline, or to screw with those history nerds, quote. Dr. Bright is not allowed to challenge anyone to a duel and then give them SCP-572. 572 is a super garbage sword that's poorly balanced, built of awful steel, and generally not good. But anyone who touches it becomes convinced that it's an amazing weapon, and it's magical. And they're known to do things like try to cut a moving car in half and just get nailed by it, or try to cut a bullet in half and just get shot.
I love it.
That's the best. I didn't know about that particular SCP. It's just the manifestation of every, weeb getting a cheap steel sword and being like, it's the best.
Chainsaws are not the solution to every question, nor is more chainsaws, or chainsaw cannons, except for that one time, and yes, it was awesome.
See, yeah, I'm agreeing with Mr. Bright or Dr. Bright on this one.
Dr. Bright, SCP speed dating never happened. Anyone who claims to remember such an event should report to Site Command for administration of a Class A amnestic. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use any SCP to alter or affect the outcomes of any reality-based television shows, including but not limited to Survivor, Big Brother, Hell's Kitchen, American Idol, or any of the dating shows on VH1. Not even if Dr. Wright asks nicely. Accidentally spilling green gelatin on a dead body in the presence of the O5 was funny exactly once.
This article's so
Nothing
funny.
in the Nothing in the Foundation is rated over 9,000. Stop it. Dr. Bright is not allowed to post classified information to 4chan.
Oof. This has got a very The Office vibe
It
to
really
it.
does.
Working for the Foundation, at least if you're immortal, has a very The Office feel.
If Dr. Bright has to ask, it's above his clearance level. And if it's above Bright's security clearance level, run. Dr. Bright is not allowed to declare war on any country, thing, or person. Foundation credit cards or expense accounts are not to be used to purchase pornography. No, Dr. Bright, not even anomalous pornography.
And there is some anomalous pornography in there.
Dr. Bright is not the Lord of Rodley Might, and is hereby banned from playing Dungeons & Dragons while making use of SCPs to, quote, simulate the real danger. Dr. Bright is not allowed to go to fan conventions, let alone use them as recruitment drives, especially not at furry conventions. For the Emperor,
place for Class Ds.
For the Emperor is not an acceptable justification for any decision that Dr. Bright makes. My evil twin did it is no longer considered a viable excuse, nor is my good twin did it, considering the implications. Yes, forum trolls are annoying. No, Dr. Bright, they don't automatically become D-class personnel.
I disagree with that.
Disagree with someone on the internet, and all of a sudden the men in black are busting down your door and they're making you touch an anomalous VHS tape.
Yep.
The Foundation motto is secure, contain, protect, not any of the following. Stab carrion powerfully. Throw the cheese. Blood makes the grass grow. Kill, kill, kill.
What?
Whose hand is that? If all else fails, poop on it. We need bigger kittens. Throw D-class at it until it stops. For the Horde. The FBI are a bunch of pansies. Slapstick,
That's a good one.
clowns, and puns.
I'm really starting to get a liking to this Bright character.
Snap, crackle, and pop. Will it blend? Dr. Bright is no longer allowed to play Hippocratic Oath chicken with any of the medical staff.
What? Wait, hold on. We can dive into that
can
one.
we
What
give
does that
you a
mean?
definition of Hippocratic Oath chicken?
I don't have it, but I assume that it's how close can we get to intentionally inflicting harm on the people under our care before someone gives up. Who chickens out first?
Fair enough.
Pranks placed into new staff's desk are not funny just because they liquefied in record time.
I think that makes it more funny, actually.
Despite his doctoral degree, Dr. Bright is not allowed to either prescribe or administer any of the following: enemas, homeopathic remedies, any sort of medication, free hugs, the healing power of laughter, sexual healing, more cowbell. Despite what he may say in any evidence, no matter how plausible, the SCP Foundation has never and will never be associated with Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and regardless of what Dr. Bright may say, he is not, and I quote, a real-life wizarding tutor. Nor is he a vampire. That was body glitter and bad acting. And despite what the computer file on him may say, he is not Muad'Dib. The spice can flow just fine without him. Yes, empirical evidence is the foundation of science. Yes, blind faith is the death of reason. No, this does not logically imply that anyone is ethically obligated to demonstrate the existence of breasts to Dr. Bright under laboratory conditions.
Just a little horny dude, man.
I mean, what else are you going to do if you're immortal?
Where
The thrill of the threat of death is gone. You need the thrill of boobs now.
Dr. Bright cannot change the standard issue D-class uniform to black pants with a red polo shirt.
Why not?
Ooh,
Good luck, dude.
it would be good. I think the standard uniform for Class D's is just like an orange jumpsuit.
I think very
Just
like
because
Half-Life.
Bright... Just because Bright...
Crash test dummy mixed with convict.
Just because Bright is a doctor does not mean that he is the doctor, no matter how many British men he possesses. Dr. Bright is no longer allowed to accept or use the following as payments for bets. Your soul. Anyone else's soul. Virgin's blood. Reproductive organs. SCPs. Memories, either real or imagined. Pieces of your past. I have no idea how he made that work with Dr. Clef, but apparently he can do it. The island of Manhattan. Beads. Firstborn children, secondborn children, redheaded stepchildren, rented mules, gold spun from straw, a child's laughter, a child's tears, virginity, ponies, anyone's grandmother, anyone's grandfather, anyone's sister, any blood relative.
Covered all the bases there, dude.
Basically, don't deal with this man. We can't stop him or we can't kill him. Just try and avoid him.
No matter how many times he photoshops himself into a picture of SCP-682, the indestructible reptile, and no matter how many Australians he possesses, Bright is not and never was the crocodile hunter.
You don't need proof on that one.
God,
There's another
imagine
one.
being an immortal shit poster.
We'll move on, but there's one that I can't find that's in here that says that he's no longer allowed to commit suicide in front of Catholics.
Pretty good.
SCP-963 is not the Soul Gem. Bright does not have access to the Infinity Gauntlet. Please stop glaring at people who annoy you and snapping.
That's a habit I gotta pick up, dude.
That would be a pretty good one.
Oh,
Anyone have any others?
Well, I will addendum this one thing is that looking at the documentation for 050, Dr. Bright is mentioned several times within the Great Researcher Prank War. Which, tracks.
yeah, it would.
Some of his stories are really sad, and there's a lot of, like, tragedy that surrounds him, but also, yeah, there's a whole bunch of authors who've taken Dr. Bright and his immortality and been like, yes,
Yeah,
let's
let's
do
play
it.
with
Yeah.
this, man.
Dr. Bright is no longer allowed to declare, after 10,000 years, I'm free. It's time to conquer Earth, upon assuming a new host. Dr. Bright does not have 10 tons of gold hidden somewhere at Site 19.
I've been lied to.
It reminds me of this post I saw on Twitter months ago. It's one of my favorites, and it was called, like, the bag of cash challenge. Or they were like, in a random Taco Bell bathroom wall, we've hidden a duffel bag filled with $50,000 cash. Can you find it?
What? Hold on. What was the context for that?
It was just like a random shit post that someone made, but the joke is like,
Oh, God.
people are gonna go
yeah.
out and destroy fucking Taco Bells.
Looking for $50,000
I would, dude. 100%.
That's an action you pull if you manage to hack a major corporate account. Be like, hey, we've hidden $50,000 in the walls of one of our restaurants.
Anything else, my friends?
I got. No, I think I covered everything I want to.
Well, I mean, there's about 7,000 of these, so I don't think we have time for all
No,
of them.
no. Let's wrap it up, and then one day we'll come back to this and dig up a few more of these.
Yeah, I was gonna
Oh,
say,
yeah.
tell you what, if this does well, we can keep coming back to this, guys. So let us know if you liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more SCPs like this one.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, then that is all for us now. We don't have all of the answers because I don't have time to go through all of the articles on this
There's a
website.
lot.
So we're just going to make do
There's
with
a
what
lot
we
of
have.
articles. There's a lot of them.
If
Some
you
of them are
liked,
good.
if you liked this, check out our Twitter on Twitter at OOTA_POD. Join our Facebook group, Out of the Abyss Podcast, or check out our Patreon at patreon.com/OOTAP. That's patreon.com/OOTAP, where you can get bonuses like all the pre-shows that we do before we record episodes, where we just sit there and kind of bullshit with each other.
Yeah, this one was a banger. If you haven't listened to any of them, we just spent like 30 minutes talking about killer robots and Serious Sam.
And
Yeah.
Furbies.
And Furbies.
Furbies, which are killer robots. That's real.
And my innate distrust for horses.
Yeah, I forgot
Great
about that.
content.
I will never forget about that. Trust me.
So,
There's too much knowing behind their eyes, and you never know what they're thinking.
Not a lot,
So-
usually.
without further ado, thank you all very much for listening. Have a good night. And remember, everything has an element of the unknown. Good night.